I'm here to talk about a very, very pertinent conversation. The 2024 Annual Bankers Conference. Yes, it's back, and it's going to be taking center stage today and tomorrow. It is the 7th year running that Mastercard has been handling the machinations of the Uganda Bankers Association Conference. But of course, this time around, they're going to be focusing on the ESG principles, environmental, social, and governance principles in that regard. In 1977, during the apartheid regime in South Africa, there was a gentleman called Father Reverend Leon Sullivan. He was a member of General Motors in the United States. He refused to do business with South Africa because it was undertaking apartheid. They were discriminating on the black people, and they said, no, as a businessman and my principles, I'm not going to be investing in South Africa. So guess what? The whole United States government took on the Sullivan Code and said, we are going to be investigating any company that does business with the segregative white minority leaders in South Africa. So we are now calling it the Sullivan Code in that regard. So when it comes to the ESG principles, how can they be inculcated into the banking sector? That's why we are here, and we do have Ali Shehiria. He is the Senior Vice President at Mastercard East Africa. Very good morning, Ali. Thank you for joining us on Morning at NTV.
It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Let's kick off with the easiest question. Environmental socio-governance principles, what are they? Break them down for our viewers.
Let me simplify the answer to that question. If you think of a triangle and you think one side of that triangle is the difference between the one and the many, which talks to financial inclusion. Who are we missing on that table when we are making our strategies? Whose voice is not heard? So that's one side, right?
Indeed.
The second is man versus nature on this side of the triangle, where we are not particularly giving importance to environment and how we need to make our environment strong. At the base of this is governance. Are you making your decisions from a short-term perspective, or are you looking at the long-term impact of what you're making your decisions on today and making a strategy on? And so with this kind of a visualization, hopefully it becomes a bit easier as to when we are making our strategies, we need to become more conscious of inculcating ESG, environment, social, governance, critical.
All right. What is the correlation between the banking sector and now the environmental principle first?
See, so everything from the start of a customer's onboarding, where perhaps a piece of paper is being used, that becomes a problem to be solved. Why should we need, in this digital age, in the age of digital transformation, why do we need any physical piece of paper? So here,
like when I go to a bank and they tell me, Rom, you're filling this form.
Yeah.
All right.
Electronic signatures are now common. So
you don't need paper.
You don't need paper. So I think the whole world has moved to that point where you can go on a tablet, you can do your signature, you can fill out your application. So it starts from something as small as that. But secondly, the kind of lending you're doing, the green financing you're doing, the bonds that you're putting out, are they green? Are you checking for your projects? Are they really compliant with the principles of environment strengthening or not? And so I think it's about awareness, education within not just the banking sector. It's across the board, government, telcos, fintechs, financial institutions, merchants, you name it. We all need to come together, because trust me, when you look at that youth's, your child, your nephew, nieces, and you look into their eye, and if you cannot keep that emotion, that what kind of world are we leaving ahead for them? Look at the climatic challenges already. It is not something that we can plan and do something in the future about. We've got to do it now.
So essentially the banking sector is saying if we are to invest in a certain business or project, it has to be cognizant of the environment.
100%.
All right. And we had the economist Friedman back in the 1970s who was saying that social responsibility cannot amount to anything significant. You cannot make money if you are adhering to your corporate social responsibility. But in the 1980s, Moskowitz and all these economists, they were actually very optimistic. They were saying, actually, if you invest in your social responsibility as a company, you make more money in the long run.
Correct.
So break down that social governance principle, the social aspect.
Absolutely. I think it's critical for we are 8 billion people in the world.
Indeed.
Right? Half of them are women. So how can you plan for your strategy as any organization without having the right voices on the table.
Perfect.
I am delighted to let you know that MasterCard East Africa, 68% of my team is really smart, bright, hardworking women who are leading us. And I believe that and that's just one socioeconomic or one social segment we're talking here. Youth. If the average median age of Africa is 19 or East Africa is 19 years, well, are we hearing their voice? You know, are they used to now using cash? Probably not. I've got this wearable on me right now. This wearable is allowed in a school. The phone is not, cash is not. Can we not tokenize and give this wearable to our children and say, okay, this is a safer, cleaner, environmentally friendlier way for you to make your payments? And I think that is what, when you get the right voices on the table, it could be minorities. You cannot have a strategy if 30% of your population, which is minority, is not on the table. So diversity is a core pillar.
Yes.
Exactly. Diversity is critical to be represented in our boardrooms, in our strategy setup teams. You know.
So the ESG's principles, in a way, are actually advising the companies how they should recruit in their companies. You need to be cognizant of the women in there, young people in there. Everyone has to be catered. Minorities, black and white, all mixed together.
Correct.
That is perfect. It is understood. Now, on the governance principle, how does that correlate and intertwine with the banking sector?
I see, from a governance perspective, what do you want? You want a sustainable, long-term, healthy, growing business.
Yes.
Right? How can you achieve that? You have to have a very careful balance between short-term objectives on revenues and profits versus the long-term runway that you're setting up for your company.
Indeed.
Right? So the decisions you take today, if you are too hungry and focused on this year's results, and therefore you are taking certain decisions which are high risk, have a negative impact on the environment, have a negative impact on your staff and or the customer, that is not a sign of a prudent, let's say, decision-making body. So what we need to do is ensure that in the boardrooms, this discussion around short-termism and long-termism is very evident. And every decision that is taken should be questioned in the long term. Will this benefit the company, the shareholders, the stakeholders, the customers, or will this hurt? Yeah.
Indeed. And how can the banking sector use the ESG principles to help our farmers in the country? How is it going to affect agriculture within Uganda?
So you see, we are very proud of our Community Pass program. That program has been in the market for the last 4 to 5 years. We've already benefited 1.3 million farmers. So what is Community Pass? Indeed. It's a card with a chip, and it's an API on the phone. Or it can be operated with the USSD as well, because a lot of the farmers don't have access to connectivity. It enables offline payment capability. So if I want to order my seeds, my inputs for my produce, I need to use something that is easy and simple and on the tip of my finger. It's basically on my fingertips. I can just apply, get the inputs, have access to a marketplace in an easy way. We've got digital agents. MasterCard's got Community Pass agents in the market which help the farmers upskilling, understanding how the tech works, and then getting them to use the benefit of digital rails of payment. So we've reached 1.3 million in Uganda alone, working with Yo Uganda, working with a DFCU, Equity Bank. In January, we launched our Community Pass chip card. Now, this chip is not just about transactions for farmers. It can be your ID. It can also include your aid disbursements, your health records, a host of other things, which will make it easy for you to identify yourself that around me, this is my ecosystem and this chip holds that information. Now, we obviously are mindful of data privacy and all of that, so we ensure we follow that guideline. But our goal is to go from 1.3 million farmers in Uganda to almost 3x. And for Africa, 15 million within the next 3 years.
And with the initiative already reaching millions in Uganda here, what is the next step for you to scale up this success story in the whole of East Africa?
So look, we've just, in Washington, D.C., we have signed the MADE Alliance for Africa. In that, it's MasterCard African Development Bank with $300 million of investment coming in just for farmers.
Just for the farmers?
Just for farmers, and special focus on women. And so what that does is that it brings to the table not just African Development Bank and MasterCard, it brings in Microsoft, from an upskilling perspective, it brings in Equity Bank as a local FI or regional FI who's going to support, and more partners are joining us. We can't do this alone. We have to have partners coming and joining the MADE platform. And within the next, for example, we've got 3 million farmers that we're targeting in the coming year, where we're going to digitize them. Some of this $300 million is grants, some of it is structured finance. So where the grant is, we're just giving that to the banks to give the farmers the digital tools or IDs, in this case Community Pass.
Community Pass. Yeah. How much does it cost? Is it free of charge?
No, so here's the good thing. We understand that the economic model for each socio-economic segment cannot be the same.
Indeed.
Right? So we had to tailor this one down because it has offline payment capabilities. We needed it to be very, very minute. Even the cost of that plastic was 1/5 of what a normal plastic would be. Yeah. So and talking on plastic, or by 2028 we're moving to RPVCs, which is basically recyclable.
Indeed.
So that is also talking to the environmental goals. So yes, it is low cost. Transaction cost is marginal compared to the normal transaction cost, and the solution itself is also cheap.
Mr. Shahryar, as MasterCard Uganda, what are some of the challenges you've encountered along the way when it comes to the incorporation of ESG principles?
Look, I think that Uganda has done a really good job. Your deforestation rate was running at a very high percentage.
We banned charcoal, so no more logging.
Yeah, so your forestation cover went from 24% to 9% and now back up to 12%. So you're doing something right because you're going back up, right? And with these conferences, the ones that we are just about to do, this is a powerful forum. Uganda Bankers Association is a melting pot of government, regulator, fintechs,
all
FIs,
stakeholders,
everybody. And so if here we can agree that for the next year we're going to double down on ESG principles and make an impact, nothing better. MasterCard has already, this is breaking news for you, we have set up our company in Uganda. It's called OPS, or Orient Payment Solutions, MasterCard Uganda Limited. We are in the process of getting licensed by the Bank of Uganda, and we expect to have people working in Uganda, designing solutions for Uganda, and making an impact here.
Well, of course, the Uganda Bankers Association annual conference is on. It's been 7 years now.
Yes.
Why did you take interest in sponsoring this conference for 7 consecutive years? We'd like to know.
Well, I think the answer will be revealed to you in the next hour or so. It is an amazing platform.
Indeed.
You know, you have all thought leaders there who are coming together and driving the agenda of ESG, sustainability, digital transformation, right? So it's all about how do we converge as one unit, how do we take away the pieces or actionable items that we can take away and drive it with intent and impact. It's important not to just have a conference and then forget about the measurables. We need to agree on what do we as a body are going to hold ourselves accountable to. Yeah.
And of course, yes, indeed, Mr. Shahryar, time is first spent, and we do have, you told me there are 4 principles or recommendations that are going to be broken down in the course of the 2 days that the conference is going to be taking center stage. Break down those recommendations.
So I think it's all about the ESG principles, and my humble submission was that in the next 2 days we should come out with 3 to 4 actionable items.
Indeed.
Which are measurable and can be having an impact in Uganda.
What are those?
So if you look at environment, we would like to offer our Priceless Planet Coalition platform.
All right.
Hundreds of companies globally, including Citibank, Barclays, Network International, Paramount Bank, a host of others, are already signed up. Cellcom has signed up for our carbon calculator. What's a carbon calculator? You can find out what is your CO2 footprint.
Indeed.
Just on your mobile banking app, an API tells you you've spent so much money on car fuel, so much therefore you need to plant 3 trees this month. And if you choose to do so, you have just done the environment a favor by being responsible citizen. So that's another one. And then of course our commitment towards recyclables, that is a critical one for us to execute.
That is Ali Shahryar, the Senior Vice President at MasterCard Uganda. Thank you so much for having made the time to share these pointers with us right here in Morning at NTV.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Of course.